Chapter 3, The Little Boy in the Bar. 5 years later. In the Eden Bar, in a corridor on the empty top floor. Ning Xi had been drinking for the entire night to accompany some investors. With a splitting headache, she wanted to find somewhere clean and quiet to sober up, but she had not expected that Chong Li would follow her. She could only gather up her spirit to deal with her. Sister Chong, is there something you want to say? Ning Xi, let me ask you, did you register to audition for the female lead in Land Under Heaven? Yes, why? You're not allowed to go tomorrow. Although Chong Li was her manager, she was stopping her from auditioning for this role that all the major entertainment companies were jostling for. Ning Xi was not at all surprised by this, and only raised her brows and asked, reason? You went behind my back and acted by yourself, and you still dare to ask me for the reason? Didn't you know that the company has already arranged for Ning Xi to audition? This doesn't seem to conflict with the company's arrangements. Ning Xi smiled faintly at her. Ning Xi made you come find me. Don't tell me she's afraid that I, a small-time actress whose name isn't even known, will snatch her role. You think you have the ability to snatch Swallow's role? You're still talking in your dreams. Let me tell you, don't waste your efforts. The Ning family has invested 30 million into this movie. Swallow is already sitting securely in this role. Then why are you so anxious? Since you're my artist, you have to listen to my arrangements. Chong Li said as if that was how it ought to be. So Sister Chong still knows that I'm an artist under you. Ning Xi, I don't have the time to bicker with you. Since you're refusing to comply, don't blame me for resorting to force. As she finished speaking, Ning Xi felt a strong blow from behind. Caught off guard, she was pushed into the storeroom in the corner, and her phone was also taken away. With a bang, the door was heavily shut. The footsteps outside the door slowly drifted away. Knowing that shouting was useless, Ning Xi kept silent. Leaning against the door, she slid down to the floor with an indifferent expression. When she had first entered the company, Ning Xi was still able to restrain herself, and only made Chong Li arrange for some villain roles for her at most. However, she was growing bolder and starting to go too far. She was even able to throw out such a low-level tactic. If she failed to get the role this time, then she had to find a way to leave Starlight Entertainment. Amidst her messy thoughts, a small sound traveled to her ears. Was there a mouse? Ning Xi followed the direction of the sound and looked over and was stunned. She saw a little boy behind a stack of boxes. That little guy looked to be about 4 or 5. He looked like a finely carved jade piece, white, soft, like a little bun. He was currently shivering and hiding in the corner, his dark eyes filled with precaution and vigilance. Why would there be a child in a storeroom of a bar? There shouldn't be a customer so crazy as to bring their child to a bar, right? Hey, little bun, who are you? How did you get in here? Did you sneak in? Were you also shut in here by someone? Do you eat sweets? After questioning him for half the day, the child remained silent, but started shaking even more, as if he were a frightened little beast. Finally, Ning Xi did not bother continuing to speak. It had nothing to do with her anyway. The two of them, adult and child, thus peacefully occupied a corner each. At this moment, the light bulb above them flashed brightly, then went out. In the darkness, Ning Xi vaguely heard a chattering sound. After carefully listening for a bit, she realized that it was similar to the sound of teeth chattering. Ning Xi laughed in spite of herself, and turned towards the little bun to say, "Scared of the dark?" The chattering sound paused for a second, before increasing in volume. "Oh, how was he so cowardly?" Ning Xi patted her bottom and stood up, then walked towards the little guy, Chapter 4, Saved a Little Bun. The little bun was so scared of her that his face went pale. However, Ning Xi just sat down next to the little bun and did nothing, immediately shutting her eyes and going to sleep. She had been pushed by Chong Li to accompany people and drink the whole night. She had a blinding headache right now. When Ning Xi finally woke up after a while, she felt that the side of her leg was warm. Lowering her head, she could see that at some point, the little bun had snuggled up to the side of her leg, and his little hand was even holding on to the corner of her shirt. Ning Xi could not help but laugh. Previously, when she was still in the countryside, she had owned a cat. It was particularly cowardly and afraid of people, and would run if it saw any person. However, as long as you did not notice it, it would let its guard down and feel like you were not a threat. Once that happened, it would sneakily snuggle up to your side by itself, even climbing into your lap to sleep. The little bun seemed to have felt her gaze. His little face blushed a bit, but this time, there was no more panic in his eyes. Instead, his big eyes were filled with curiosity. He was really just like a little pet cat, even his eyes were the same. Ning Xi's lips curved up, her hands were itching to pet him. She gave up on resisting and reached out to pet that adorable fluffy little head. With that one touch, her face immediately changed. Why was his forehead this hot? You're having a fever. Chong Li would keep her locked up until the audition was over tomorrow, at the very least. If the child continued burning for that long, it would be too dangerous. While getting anxious over the time, she found that something was not right. The light bulb had blown. Why was there still light in the room? Raising her head, she saw that there was a small skylight, and light was falling from that small window. Ning Xi looked around the storeroom, and finally moved a ladder over. Little bun, come over, I'll help you get out. The little guy finally showed a response to her words, but he shook his head with a resolute gaze. Ning Xi understood his meaning, but smiled and pinched his cheeks. You're quite loyal after all, you want to suffer together with me. Go up, this window is too small, I can't get out. If you get out first, you can find someone to come save me. Seeing that the little guy was still hesitating, Ning Xi carried him and placed him on the ladder. Quickly, if you're a man, then don't hesitate. I'll protect you from the bottom. After finally sending the child out with much difficulty, Ning Xi felt a wave of dizziness. She lost control of her legs, and fell from the ladder in one movement. From the edge of the window, the little bun saw this scene, and panic rose up on the previously dull and lifeless little face. Ning Xi held on to the last bits of her strength and said one word, go. Under the light of the stars, the woman's face was pale and fragile, but that did not obscure her startling beauty. Especially that pair of moist and lively eyes, that were like a sea filled with endless stars. She was no longer the ignorant countryside girl and ugly duckling. However, what use was that now? Ning Xi smiled bitterly. Before she had her revenge, she would fall to her death here. However, before dying, at least she had done a good deed in saving the little bun. If her child had not died back then, he would probably be around this age. After the car accident 5 years ago, in shame, the Ning family had sent her away to a university specializing in accepting wayward children of the elite in America, leaving her to fend for herself. She withdrew from that university and reapplied for the University of South California, almost going crazy in her pursuit of all kinds of knowledge. Because she wanted to defeat Ning Xi, and take back everything that was hers. Most importantly, acting was the biggest dream of her life. After returning to her homeland, using this face and a solid foundation of acting skill, she was spotted by Chong Li, and successfully entered the industry's largest company, Starlight Entertainment. She should have had a bright future from then, but Ning Xi followed her into starlight, and through bribing Chong Li, was suppressing her from all directions. Chapter 5, We found little young master. At the same time, in the reception room of the Eden bar, the atmosphere was heavy. The boss of the bar, the managers, security, and all related staff were standing in a row with great trepidation. All of them had expressions showing that disaster was about to fall upon them. Because the Lu Corporation's little prince, Lu Tingxiao's precious son, had gone missing in their bar. On the sofa, Lu Tingxiao's face was chilly as always, not a single shred of extra feeling was showing on that ice statue. However, the pressure of a superior was pressing on each person present, causing their legs to soften and their sweat to fall like the rain. No one dared to utter a single word. A young man was kneeling by his feet, face full of tears and snot. "Brother, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have brought little treasure to a bar. If anything happens to little treasure, then I won't live any longer." As he finished speaking, a kick was thrown at his chest. The sound of bone breaking made their scalps tingle. Everyone present shook a little. Lu Jingli clutched at his chest and coughed fiercely for a while, before immediately crawling back up and kneeling with a straight back again. Their parents were still overseas on holiday, and have not heard that little treasure was lost. If they were to find out, then it would not be settled with a simple kick from his older brother, he could even be flayed alive. Lu Jingli's heart was currently like dead ashes, completely ashamed. Suddenly, a knock sounded on the door of the reception room. The boss, who was the closest to the door, opened it. Seeing that there was no one at the door, he was still wondering about it when he bent his head, and was stunned. Little young master. Little treasure. Heavens! Little treasure. Second uncle's precious baby. Where did you run off to? Lu Jingli crawled up from the ground to embrace the little guy tightly. He was so emotional that he burst into tears. Everyone in the room held an expression of having survived death. Lu Tingxiao walked a few steps to the door, then grabbed Lu Jingli's collar to throw him away. He squatted down in front of his son. What happened? After finally getting out of the clutches of his second uncle, little treasure grabbed onto Lu Tingxiao's hand, anxiously trying to tug him outside. Just as Lu Tingxiao got closer to his son, he smelled the strong scent of alcohol from his body. There was also a hint of a subtle fragrance, not the pungent smell of a perfume, but more like a flower that had bloomed on a glacier. The cool fragrance was inexplicably familiar to him, to the point that his heart skipped a beat for a moment. Seeing that Lu Tingxiao was not moving, little treasure pointed in a certain direction, anxiously making hoarse ha-ha sounds from his throat. Lu Tingxiao picked up his son, and headed straight in the direction that his son was pointing in. The people behind him, including Lu Jingli, saw that something was up and exchanged gazes before following. 5 minutes later, the group of people stopped in front of a storeroom on the top floor. Little treasure twisted his body and dropped down from his father's body, and beat at the storeroom's door with all his strength, looking extremely anxious. Little treasure, what's happening? What's inside? Lu Jingli was confused. Lu Tingxiao ordered expressionlessly, "Open the door." "Yes, yes, yes." The boss of the bar nodded his head, then turned to scold the female manager at his side. "Manager yet, what are you waiting for? Quickly open the door." "Where's the key?" "Ah! Oh, open the door." The female manager was stunned. "Oh no! That woman, Ning Xi, was still locked in there. She promised Chong Li to keep her at least until the audition was over. However, with these two gods from the Lu family and the boss waiting, how could she possibly refuse? She could only tremble and pull out the key to open the door. Once the door was opened, a woman lying unconscious on the floor came into view. "What's going on? Why is there a woman in there?" the boss raged. I don't know. There wasn't anyone in there when I last checked." The female manager suppressed the guilt in her heart and explained. "Quickly! Just save that person first." Just as someone attempted to get close to Ning Xi, Little Treasure immediately threw himself onto Ning Xi's body. His little face held a ferocious expression, not letting anyone near.